Hello, White Sox fans. My name is Brett Ballantini. I'm trying to remember how to host a South Side, whatever we are now, mothership podcast, whatever we call it now. A lot has changed since we last did one of these staff, I guess you could say, podcasts. We've had Ladies Night. We've had Visiting Dugout, of course. Probably even had a couple farm podcasts since the last time the mothership gathered. And, things have changed. We don't need to get into that. Who cares? But one thing that hasn't changed is Chicago White Sox are a really lousy team. And very recently, they continue to set new lows. Double-figure losing streak, then very close to a record losing streak, and then starting all over again, and then really blowing away the prior losing streak. All-time losing streak, I think, was 15 over 2 years, 14 in 1 year, or maybe it's 14, 13. I don't even care anymore because guess what? Nobody cares about those records any longer because the new record is 21. They added roughly a third to what was already a pretty onerous record at 14 or 15 or whatever it was. Again, it's out of my mind. This is a very important brain right here. I can't really clutter it with a bunch of useless information like the second longest losing streak, even though it was in this season. And you know what? There's still 2 months to go, so don't decide to write down in pen the 21 games lost is going to be the longest losing streak in White Sox history or in the 2024 season. I promised myself, I promised briefly to my three wonderful guests here, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, host of Ladies Night, and she just finds her way to just scuffle into most of these podcasts. I don't know what's wrong with her in doing that, but God bless her for doing it because she keeps me company. So thank you, Melissa. Dante Jones, who has admitted with some reluctance or pride, he has seen no White Sox win so far this season, in contrast to Joe Resis, who is our third guest here, and Melissa as well. Joe, Super Joe, on the coast, saw the big win that actually sort of gotten people a little frustrated because we've sort of gotten into a groove about, sort of got into losing a little bit. But we're going to talk about that maybe second half of the podcast, talk about the idea of rooting for the White Sox to lose and whether that's, I don't know, right thing, wrong thing, unethical, whether you're a bad fan, as if we're going to judge other fans. There's no way that a White Sox fan can judge any other fan, and really we can't judge one another at this point. This is just absolute chaos and entropy in this season. Although, frankly, it's not true because the one thing we can count on from the White Sox, the one consistency, the one inertia of the 2024 season is losing. So I guess while trying to keep it, well, not upbeat, but just, real, because it's all anyone's had to talk about for essentially close to a calendar month following the Chicago White Sox is losing streak, losing, worst ever, terrible, horrific, embarrassing. I know it's probably been touched on in Ladies Night with you, Melissa, but I'll go right to you to start off. How you're feeling about things, I don't know, surrounding this team, losing streak. I think you take a bit of a tact. It's a little more upbeat about the losing streak. Upbeat's not the right word, but trying to lean into it, I suppose. So where do you stand? Grinding your teeth down to the nubs, but where do you stand with the fact that the losing streak's over?
I'm sad. Like, I'm a little sad that it's over. And I had the game coverage today. So last night I was texting with our other lovely Di, and we were just both really pissed off that she had coverage last night and I had it today, and they screwed it up for us. Like, honestly, come on. Like, we had a chance to write about like something historic, and of course they screwed it up for us. So I was a little sad, a little bummed, but at this point, I mean, I was thinking about it, actually. I was driving to dinner tonight to meet some friends, and like Nana Nana came on, strangely enough, came on the radio. Well, that's because I'm old and I listen to like 70s on 7 and 80s on 8 stuff. So it came on the radio, and I was like, got all like sentimental, and it's like, damn it, the stupid ass team, like, it's terrible, but I still love them. It's just, I don't know. It's just maddening, and it's the one dysfunctional thing in my life that I can't seem to let go of. Like I had a friend like post on one of my posts the other day, like, "This is a waste of your time. What are you doing?" And I'm like, I can't stop. I can't look away. So yeah.
I hope you listen to all whatever 3 minutes 30 seconds of that song, Melissa, because you probably won't have cause to ever hear it at the ballpark, like maybe ever again. So cherish that when it does come on, the old randomizer. Super Joseph Resis, West Coast correspondent. Hippie Joe, you actually saw, well, you could argue some history. So please just let us bask in the moment. Tell us what happened for you on Tuesday.
What a great experience. That was a really fun time. I mean, for one night, it felt like we were World Series champions there. It was, I know it sounds silly, but I experienced some genuine excitement during that game on Tuesday night. I am in the camp where I was not rooting for them to make history in this way. And the pretty much the entire game, I was like bracing for impact. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the point where it's gonna all fall apart. They're gonna blow this lead. But like, really, in the home stretch of this game, nobody was getting on base for Oakland, and I was like, oh my god, this is like way too good to be true. Like, this never happens. Like this, they're just gonna go down easily, I guess. But yeah, I thought of one of the interviews from the Miracle on Ice game in 1980, which was one of the players from the Soviet Union. I remember saying, like, none of us thought we were going to lose until the last minute of the game, which I kind of related to last night. I did not think the White Sox were going to win until there were 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, with nobody on base. But it was a great experience. Let's see, there was a very friendly Oakland fan behind me. He gave me a hug when the final out was recorded. I was very excited. I hugged the stranger.
Two wounded fan bases,
Yes.
for sure. Joe, I'm going to hazard a guess, given that there's only been, whatever it is, like 23 or something in history. I'm going to hazard a guess you've never seen a perfect game, but guess what, Joe? You sort of saw a game come together like a perfect game does, and you sort of saw yourself a perfect game.
Yeah, kind of.
The history books won't. They'll be like, it'll be a lost game, like all those no hitters that got erased. It'll be like, no, there wasn't a perfect game in 2024. And you'll say, oh no, believe me, I got the hug from the A's fan to prove the fact that I saw a perfect game. Okay, I have to. I have to ask this. I mean, you've seen some real unicorn games, Joe. You saw a win that broke a 21-game losing streak. You saw a particular favorite backstop hit 3 home runs in a game. Really, how do those two compare? I mean, does one really stand out as better than the other, or is it just too fresh for you to really make that judgment?
That's a great question, actually. I'm still gonna give the edge to Seby Zavala's 3 game. Yeah, that one was like, unironically, the vibes in the stadium were amazing. The White Sox were good. That was my girlfriend's first White Sox game. I was really hoping that something special would happen, and it certainly did.
Yeah.
And even though it was a loss, it was a really, really great time. Like, they were both great experiences, but I got to give the edge to the Seby 3-homer game.
Sure, and after that game, Seby hugged you. So I mean, by the hug quotient, that's even bigger. He's like, man, this guy was just cheering his head off for me. He was going crazy after the first home run. After 3, forget about it. We went out to dinner afterward. All right, related. Let's chat a little bit. Dante, if you're out there, you're welcome to speak up. I don't mean to skip you here. So if you come back to it. Okay, yeah. Please give me a vibe
because my connection's horrible.
Fair enough. Your vibe check. I'm sure none of this has been a shock to you.
Wow, they did it.
Oh, I think we are getting a very sporadic audio signal from you. So yeah, I'm sorry about that, Dante. We will welcome you back if you can connect up a little more strongly. It does help our PG-13 rating probably if Dante is unable to weigh in fully on what he thinks about the 2024 Chicago White Sox. But Dante, we will welcome you back if you can get the connection straightened out a little bit. Related to the losing streak, of course, is something, gosh, it seems like maybe just the very last last time we boarded the mothership, I believe, was Melissa and Di Billick, who, by the way, shout out to Di. Not sure how much of it you can see, but her fabulous art of a White Sox park in various states of chaos and flames is sort of our background. For this podcast, I figured, you know what? Let's just keep it up because I see, yes, now that Dante is trying to reconnect, we see the flames. Some of them are around second base, and water slide of horror, whatever it is. I don't even remember what it all was. And back then it was quaint. It was like, wow, she's doing this sort of very angry tribute to how bad the White Sox have been for. What was that, 2 months? God, think about how innocent we were just 2 months ago. But at any rate, yes, I think I was with Di and Melissa when I first brought up the notion of the fact that the White Sox were rapidly approaching becoming actually a losing franchise, which, you might think, who cares? What's the big deal? I don't know. I can't say if you're a Cubs fan because I don't know how often they've been a losing. I mean, we know they're a losing franchise, but I mean, overall wins and losses, I'm not sure if they've actually gone underwater. Some other teams like Philadelphia, the Phillies can play they can win 100 games for 10 years in a row. And I'm not quite sure they're going to get their head above water quite yet. They've dug such a hole for themselves. A's could perhaps be in that situation as well. White Sox have not. They have one era from the very first game they played in the major leagues. They did not have any trouble being a winning team. They won the first game, and they never looked back. In 48, they finally fell under. That's after close to 3 decades of losing. Post-Black Sox, 3 decades of losing. It took that much to take away all the sort of goodwill and the wins that they built up in the first 20 years of their franchise when they were a dominant AL team. I think had 4 losing seasons the first 21 years. So it took all that time to erode that. And then for about 8 years, they were a losing team. They had a losing record overall. And since then, since 56, 68 years ago, not 69, Brett, 68, they've been above water. As soon as tomorrow, they'll no longer be a winning team. As soon as Friday. These 2-game series are screwing me up. And of course, never hosting one of these podcasts ever again is screwing me up. As soon as Friday, they'll be a non-winning team. If they lose to the Cubs, they will be a 500 team. And we know what direction they're heading. They're rapidly heading toward being a losing overall team. We're talking amongst ourselves, varying ages of fans. I would dare say in this tag team here, we're going to have to pit Melissa Sage-Bollenbach and myself against Super Joseph Resis and Dante Jones in terms of rough generational here. And we're not going to fight. There's a fighting and arguing here, but we do have different perspectives on what the team is. I dare say Dante might be our most junior here, but there are fans who come in maybe very young for the World Series, maybe even after the World Series at this point, who don't know the White Sox other than a bumbling, crumbling embarrassment because we've had essentially at least a dozen years of it, with one break in one real season of a 93-win year in a dozen years. So I guess as we are careening toward becoming very clearly and it's going to happen, there's no way around it, a losing franchise for really just the second time, I'm wondering if it's something you give any thought, if there's any point to having any sort of chip on your shoulder about the White Sox. I know that's gone. That's been knocked off a long time ago. But the numbers are still the numbers. The team actually isn't a losing franchise until, I don't know, Saturday? It's coming. Definitely next week. But, it's coming. It's inevitable. Thoughts about that? Or has it already just been ground to dust to the point where, this is semantics, and it's black and white on paper. It doesn't really matter because we already feel like we're wearing the scarlet L on our chests. Dante, you're back, and if we can hear you, I'm going to give you a chance to give us some thoughts on that. Again, perhaps as our junior fan, or at least as part of Team Jones Resis, how do you represent here?
All right. So one, can I be heard?
Yes, you can. Yes, you're back.
We succeeded. Cool. Yeah. So, 28 years old, seen a lot of losing in my life. Did see a World Series. Did see some good baseball. It is just semantics at this point for me because, well, at the end of the day, the White Sox have been a losing franchise the majority of my life anyway. Like, there hasn't been as much good as bad in the times I can remember. So, losing franchise. They happen to be a team I root for, despite the fact that I'm literally one of the Seattle Mariners right now. And went to the opening game of that series and wore all Mariners gear because I'd much rather represent Ken Griffey Jr. than the shell of the White Sox are right now. So at the end of the day, like you said, they'll probably get swept in 2-game series against the Cubs, lose the Crosstown Classic, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And go to 500 for the first time in a very long time as a franchise.
Yeah. I'm going to kick it to your teammate, who I believe, again, I'm not checking IDs here. I'm going to guess now is about you guys are about roughly the same age then. So, Joe, again, I'm not checking IDs, but your perspective on this, feeling any differently about it. I know you're not showing up out there at the Coliseum decked out in a super cool like Reggie Jackson a vest, which would be great if you had one. You're not taking it maybe to the degree that Dante is. I'm fairly certain, but your feelings about it too, because again, the majority of your lifetime, the White Sox have been subpar.
This is interesting. Okay, I'm also 28, so yeah, we are exactly the same.
There we go.
I feel pretty much the same way on that. Like I kind of had a feeling early on this season that they might drop to below 500 all time, but that's just the vast majority of those years I wasn't even alive, and really like I've kind of been at peace with the White Sox, being a sort of a struggling franchise for a while. Like even if I really just want them to be good again. I don't really. I don't expect them to be good anytime soon, of course, because the pathway just doesn't really exist, and that's something I have pretty much accepted. For them to be struggling in the near future, but they could fall. They could fall to 500 games under 500. Like the next time they're good, like I'm gonna be able to forget all about this, and I'll be like, well, that wasn't fun for a while there, but it's still gonna be okay. Like because now that I assume the next time they'll be good. Reinsdorf won't be the owner, Getz won't be the GM. Like it'll feel like a clean slate. Like I won't hold the all-time record against them, no matter how far below 500 they fall.
See, in spite of the title of this podcast, nothing positive, you just got at least a sliver of sunshine from Super Joe there. Yeah, Joe, you're not weird for thinking that you are wrong for not anticipating them hitting 500 this year. They would have had to go 15-1-12, I think 15-1-12 to be 500 at the end of the season. And even I, going into the season, didn't think that was going to happen. In fact, none of us did. I don't even think Ryan, who was the low picker among us all in our predictions, I don't think he was one. I wasn't
referring to the preseason prediction. When they fell to like 3-22, I was like, okay, this might get really, really ugly.
Yeah. Same. I had them at 102 losses, and that feels stupid at this point, which is sad.
Yeah, we're all got way too much sunshine. In an article written in one of our, I can't even make sense of what's going on with White Sox coverage at this point, so I'm not going to, bother to name check or plug. But there might be a link in this post. Do we even do posts anymore? I'm so confused right now. But just a conservative estimate as to the quickest time the White Sox could get back above water, I think I came up with, like, I'm the genius who can really crunch the numbers, 2031. So we are in for a dip, and that really, I think, is realistically best case. That said, okay, we're going to go to Team Melissa and Brett now. Let's call us, what's our jersey say? The veteran fans? Experienced fans? Okay, experienced fan, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. You have a slightly different frame of reference for the White Sox. I dare say it is, though it does stretch back to those really rough late 80s, I dare say it is a little bit more positive and a few more wins under your belt. And you might know the White Sox. Even still, you might be fighting the notion that they're no longer a winning team, in spite of all the evidence we have leading up right to this season now, where they are actually going to fall down below 500 as soon as a few days from now. Where is where is that chip? Is it all disappeared? Is there a little bit of dissonance for you where it's like, wait, I think of the team this way, but the numbers now say,
So I was thinking about this recently because, being 52, I guess I started following them probably when I was around like 10. So that'll put me in like 1982. So like right at the beginning of the Reinsdorfian era, right? And then right out the gate, we had 83, which was like amazing. Yeah. And then, we had the stretch in the 80s, which was like, whoa. Yeah. But think like looking back on it, like it wasn't as bad as we thought it was because there was just the 2 divisions at that time. Mm-hmm. So like, had there actually been the 3 divisions and the wild card and all that kind of stuff, they actually would have been more competitive, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, as it felt anyway. And I think that was because it was coming off of like 83. And it was like, that was just the best, ever, except for, getting kicked out of the first round of playoffs. But still, so I think the 80s weren't as bad as I thought they were. But then the 90s, was exciting, 1990 and the new park, and then 93, and then 94 until the whole strike thing. So I guess I am not really like hung up on the 500 thing to me, because it's kind of always felt that their winning has been super spread out and super sporadic because of how it was set up back in when I first started becoming a fan. So to me, even though there's a pretty significant age difference between, us and Dante and Joe, like, still there's not that many playoff experiences to really savor in between, before they were a fan and when we were fanning. So to me, it just they just always feel bad.
Yeah, isn't it quaint that we can say, wow, it was really rough at the end of the 80s, and we're talking about basically 3 seasons, and then immediately spinning into some real, maybe not quite dominance, but I mean serious division favorites, division winning, for the first half of the 90s before Jerry put a stick in the spokes once again.
Yeah. So it always felt bad, but I guess like when you look at it, and it really wasn't that bad. So
it's so quaint compared to a dozen years. Are you kidding? My God, dude! If we had thought that this was looming ahead, seriously, Melissa, if I thought this was looming ahead for me as a White Sox fan, I'm not saying I wouldn't be a fan, but I would have definitely taken some pause, because this is misery, and I guess I will, in spite of my childish and youthful good looks, being the senior here in this podcast, I will break from the 3 of you, and though the last dozen years ish have certainly ground me down into no longer having any illusions about where this team is heading. And I don't think I was super cynical. Well, I was more cynical than average staff for sure in our group, but wasn't so super cynical. It didn't take being super cynical to say, hey, let's see if this window of contention really is going to be more than a couple of years. We sort of assumed, it might be like, well, what are they on average? 5-year stretch, maybe 4-year stretch, maybe even just 3-year stretch. We didn't get anything close to that. And I wouldn't even have been that dour going into it. I figured we at least had an arc that would take us at least to about now, mid 2020s. But still, I'm experienced enough fan to know that even though that winning was spread out, and you're right, playoffs, at a time when no wild card, basically you won a division or nothing, not quite so old as to remember just leagues. You win a pennant or you go home. But it was essentially the same thing. 7-team divisions, pretty close to an 8-team American League. So you really had to find the needle in the haystack to get into the postseason. But I never really measured it that way. I figured every year the White Sox go into the season competitive with a reasonable expectation at even 500, and that was most seasons. There's no way to revise that now. Now, again, in this century, that's not the case at all. But that's how I knew the White Sox growing up. So this is still, as much as I've had it drummed into me here over the last decade, that this isn't the way it is anymore. This isn't what being a White Sox fan is anymore. You can't just call yourself very strangely, a winner. Whisper quietly to yourself, "Don't worry, Brett. They're still winners." It's not what I knew coming into, let's say into the World Series, into all the way up to 2008. Really, even, but you can argue, 2010, 11, 12. Enough to say, hey, listen, this team has a fighting chance most years, and it doesn't have to do with the shrinking divisions and the wild card. It helps, I suppose, but this team was consistently, again, under Ken Williams, pretty consistently competitive. It's something that's been so different, the deliberate rebuild, and now whatever the heck this is now, the 8th rebuild, completely aimless and pointless. It has actually ground me down enough as a fan at this point, but I still can carry enough of a chip on my shoulder about what fandom meant to me and coming into it. I think if this was, I hate to say it, and I know it's just, your dad or your mom or your best friend or your older brother who really does inform your fandom in a lot of cases. But if I was just a very young fan today, I cannot fathom how I would pick up the White Sox as my team. And I know you don't just randomly just walk the streets and pick up a team. Oh, there's a Sox hat I'm going to wear and I'll be a fan. But I just don't see how I would. I mean, I don't think it would necessarily be Cubs. Come on. I got some sense, even though I'm talking about some imaginary 6-year-old self walking the world in 2024. I just don't think I would be able to. I do not think I'd be able to pick up the White Sox. There's some deep resentment that I'm building and it is still burning inside me. Sounds like a good time to take a break. Let me cool down and stop sweating. We will move into a little bit of a variation on a theme here. And I think probably Melissa will kick this off in the second half, but everybody will get a chance to throw in, especially if Dante and his connection decides to hang with us for a minute or two, however long we need to tell you something. We'll be back, I promise, with a rambunctious, robust, dare I say, optimistic or super negative. Don't know what it's going to be. I don't have that many notes. In the second half of this Sox Populi podcast, Mothership, number 177. See you in a minute. White Sox fans, I am the muted, demure, but of course dashingly handsome Brett Ballantini here, talking to you, hosting a 177 podcast. It's the Mothership, Sox Populi. I don't know where it's published anymore. I don't know where we're going. This season it's broken us all down. I'm lost. I'm completely lost, even though I'm attempting to host and not sync this podcast. We've been talking with Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. Joe Resis, fresh off a win. I mean, you want to talk about this man. He's a unicorn. He has seen the White Sox win a game. There are not many people left alive who have seen that. And Dante Jones, in and out, but he's in with us now for the duration. We're going to keep talking in the second half. First thing I want to talk about here, folks, and I think I want to go to Melissa first. I don't know. Just yell out if you want to. There's no order here. Come on, who cares? Rooting to lose. I think Melissa's been honest with us among staff that, she was sort of hoping to cover some history with her recap. What would have been Wednesday's recap. It didn't turn out to be because White Sox actually won a game. Thanks, Joe. But rooting to lose. I mean, we're not judging fans. I don't want to get into anything like that, whether you're a good fan or bad fan. If you want the team to lose, if you like the novelty of this, if it makes your eyes burn, if it makes you want to drop baseball entirely. But Melissa, reiterate again where you stand on this team's descent into badness and how you're sort of coping with it, because it certainly isn't fun to just go up and get your face punched every single game you're turning on, because that's what they've done 21 out of 22, pretty much all of July and now into August.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the whole fan judging thing. So that's one of the things that just drives me crazy when fans are just like, "Oh, you're not a real fan because you blah blah blah." Whatever. Like, who gives you like? Are you like anointed by God as the fan judger or something? I don't know. It's super annoying. So, I don't care if people can judge me all they want, but I am a dedicated fan. I'm a diehard fan. I'm watching every stinking one of these games. I'm still here. I'm still writing about it. I'm still podcasting about it, posting about it. So I can feel however the hell I want to feel about this sucky ass team. And if you're going to be the worst, be the best at being the worst. So it was a huge bummer to not get to see history and just be the bridesmaid, right? I mean, never the bride and always the bridesmaid. We come up and tie the second at 21. Like, how annoying is that? I was kind of pissed off, actually. Not even sad. I was just kind of pissed off because I feel like we deserve it. Like, we've been here, we've been suffering through since 2021 with this miserable mess of supposedly baseball that we've been dealing with. We could have, we deserved to get that streak. And I'm hopeful that today, or Wednesday's game anyway, that, we started another streak. There's plenty of games left. And if you watch Wednesday's game was how all of the other losses looked. It was terrible. We were in the lead, had the lead late in the game. Bullpen came in and shit the bed. So, and I don't see that changing. Like, Joe got to see the unicorn. Joe got to see the, unique game experience of 2024. And I think we're going to see just more of the same, change is hard. And clearly the White Sox are not changing.
Yeah, Joe's ticket on eBay, I think it's up to $550 already. And this is early bidding. I believe I counted it because I'm a simple man and I used my finger to count. I believe we'll all gather together at 21 on August 31st. So let's all get together again for the podcast to celebrate. Maybe we can watch it live as they cross into 22 this time. Because yes, as soon as this month they could still have this very same streak. Now there's one person who says that just might not happen because guess what? I've witnessed wins. I know what they look like. I remember what they are. He's lived to see it. It's Joe Resis. Your feeling about sort of the idea of rooting through this and the losing streak and getting behind the novelty of being this bad. And I mean, that doesn't fit with fandom, traditional fandom. I mean, we're not Cubs fans. I mean, so how have you been handling it? Even knowing you're going to walk into Oakland Coliseum and bring home a win, I've been handling it leading up to that.
Yeah. I absolutely understand the perspective there of finding the beauty in all the losing and trying to be the very best at it. I think, that's kind of what has given me some slight silver lining is just kind of finding humor in it all. Like, okay, let's see how many boxes we can check as far as like how many dumb things they're going to do in this game today. Like usually there's something that is highly unusual for a major league ball club that happens with the White Sox nowadays, and that's kind of has helped me kind of cope with how bad this team is. But yeah, I kind of hope they avoid the all-time World Series era post Cleveland Spiders loss record, just because I don't think it would embarrass Reinsdorf enough to where he would sell or make any kind of meaningful changes. So I'm like, let's try to avoid that distinction. But if they get to it, I'll try to find some beauty in the losing.
Yeah. No, there's nothing that can happen that's gonna. I mean, this team clearly, this leadership has no shame. When you're keeping a manager around solely, I mean, not that that's hasn't always been the case, but solely because of cost at this point. There's literally no other reason you could have to keep Pedro Cafal as the manager of this team. Aside from the fact it would cost, a $25,000 kicker to move Montoya, slide him down the bench from bench coach to manager, and to pay Pedro for sitting at home for 2 months. Can't do that, or 2 months in a year. I don't know how long his contract was. One more year, I think so. Dante, the novelty of all of this. Again, I'm sure you have a healthy attitude and going in, to these games to the point where you're able to, root for Seattle at a Mariners White Sox game and so forth. So I'm sure you're taking it in a healthy way, but this at the same time it doesn't feel good.
Oh no, it absolutely sucks. I hate every single part of it. It's actually brought real life like sadness to me because watching something you grew up loving just be abhorrent it's terrible.
Yeah.
And the moment like once the rumors of Pedro getting fired start floating, I was like, I don't believe it until it happens. And it didn't happen. I was like, the man's not getting fired until the end of the year, despite the fact that he absolutely should have been fired before the All-Star break, if not during the All-Star break. And the fact that, as you said, Jerry's just going to keep him around because he doesn't want to pay a kicker and move Montoya up to manager, which we've all said from jump is going to end up being what happens. And also to not have to pay Pedro to sit home. Pedro Gaffal does not inspire anything in players. He should not be a manager of a Major League Baseball team. I don't know if I would want him as a bench coach of any type at this point in time. That's how much my tune has changed on Pedro because he from throwing players under a bus to just all sorts of things. Also, slight tangent, but I haven't gotten a chance to write the article I want to write about yet because life and stuff. To NBC Sports Chicago, doing that whole thing about Eloy Jimenez is disgraceful and you should be ashamed.
Yep.
You should truly be ashamed that you decided to kick a player while they're down, getting traded from the place that they basically spent the majority of their youth at because he got injured. People do not control injuries, have some type of shame, and be a bigger publication than that. I hope the Orioles win a World Series simply so he can get a ring. And a lot of people that root for the White Sox could shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah, whether or not it's out and out wrong, and I don't necessarily agree with you, Dante, whether or not it's out and out wrong, the notion, look what direction your feet are walking here. I mean, it's not necessarily what's being said in throwing Eloy under the bus. It's who isn't getting thrown under the bus. We haven't heard this type of hysterics about certain other players. And I mean, that's where it starts to get real borderline nasty. Oh yeah.
Yeah. A certain two people with the same first name. That for as much as I was hearing about Eloy being bad at defense, hey, that $75 million left fielder wasn't too good either. Has not been the best at it either. He's hit a few more home runs than I expected him to. Congrats. He's still batting, 220? I don't know. I don't watch this team enough to care. Because when the owner shows you that you shouldn't care about a team, why would I watch? Why would I invest my time? And I hate saying that because I do love the Chicago White Sox. I've tried to give them up. So many times over the last year and a half due to the signings they've made. And I can't give them up. I would love to. But it's a curse that I've been as a fan, as somebody that cares about the team, this is my life. Yeah.
Really, as a fan, again, not that, he introduces this segment by saying don't fan judge, but so I'll admit, if you can jump that quickly to another team, I mean, not like if you're born in Oklahoma, who you root for, you're born in Oklahoma, okay. But, if you got a team and you can jump that quickly to another team, all right, I'm going to take a little closer look at you. I'm going to wonder what's sort of going on there.
I know somebody that jumped from the Chicago Bears to the Packers because of winning. And at that point in time, I did not know them anymore. So,
that person's in jail or something, I hope. That's just what's going on there.
The level of how much I care about my teams, it is. I would as I say all the time, I might have a dad that loves the Cubs. I might not hate the Cubs as much as other people. I'm still never going to be a Cubs fan. I have one Cubs hat, and that's because it was a gift.
And it can be used for any purpose. It doesn't have to be used on your head.
The absolutely horrible Wrigleyville City Connect jersey because it was a giveaway. That thing hangs in my closet right next to the Jake Arrieta jersey that no one ever wears.
Yeah, again, can be used for anything. It doesn't have to be worn. No doubt about that. Oh man. Here in happier times, which I will unlikely live long enough to see, Dante, we really do need Dante and Papa Jones doing along the lines of what Melissa and husband Sean did last year, anticipating the crosstown, getting these mixed families together to talk about this crosstown series. We need you and Papa Jones. We need Allie and her mom, I believe. Maybe
That would
even
be fun.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt.
If I could make it work, I would. But also, my pops is the no social media, no face, online presence type. So probably not.
We could
Y'all
just
might
type
get.
his answers out.
I was saying we'll get that article or three out of it probably. But,
Yeah,
you know,
you get to talk, and then we'll just go, okay, here response, and then we'll just, we'll keep going
there
that
we
way.
go.
Listen, as much as I've enjoyed, no, I won't say enjoyed, but as much as I have followed avidly the demise of this team, I believe these are my notes from Game 15. I've been tracking how historically bad this team has been pretty much since they fell 10 under, which was pretty much sneezing out of bed this season, and felt now compelled to continue to follow it with copy editing and statistical adjustments by Super Joseph Sox math champion Resis at key times when I transcribed wrongly and don't even give the White Sox enough runs, as few as they've scored, not even enough runs. So thank you for adding 100 to my total, Joe. That was an embarrassing gaffe. But here's the thing, nobody but you knows. So that's pretty telling about the 2024 White Sox. As much as that's been a project for me and perhaps maybe even been useful research for people to go on their, I don't know, radio shows or whatever and be even angrier and have actual footnotes to cite. I do feel this, and I'm sure the three of you don't necessarily are unaware of this as well. The delight, wrong word, but the delight in the history now, to me, is fool's gold. I do not want to be part of any of this, and I know none of us do. Of course, none of us do. But even this deep into it, where we're this close, we can sort of taste being the worst American League team in history. I believe the White Sox are a game ahead of pace. They are on track to be the worst American League team in history, the worst 162 game team in history, and of course, just one of the worst teams in history. I don't want that. I don't want a losing streak record. And though it may be something to mockingly celebrate and think, geez, maybe somebody in the front office will just decide to give it up, decide to retire. We know that's not going to happen. Nothing good can come of this. And they're and again, satisfaction, not the right word. It is a coping thing just to get through this. Like, hey, can I cover the record game? I mean, trust me, we're going to have another podcast rolling out when they do cross into a losing franchise. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I didn't do good with notes. I can no longer speak on podcasts to begin with. So I don't know why I do another one of these in just a few days, but I think we will, just because this is 124 years of history during which one era, okay, an 8-year era, but one single era, one era. They didn't get as close as, I think, 25 games in the late 80s. That's the closest they've come, aside from the very start of their franchise, closest they've come in all these years to even being losing. They don't approach it. So, again, we'll have to do that podcast. But again, it's fool's gold to me. I'd rather not be filling this goddamn stupid little notebook, which clearly, as I admitted to Joe, I mean, pencil, paper, eraser, it really just does not go good with stats because you decide to subtract 100 runs from the White Sox. And, those poor White Sox, they don't deserve that. Quit picking on them, Brett. Let's transition into a final topic, unless you guys have a ton more stuff you want to talk about. And Lord, I hope, save it for a few more days when we talk again, is something related to rooting to lose or, being okay, leaning into this losing streak. And again, I think we're going to have some different opinions here. I don't know if I'm just, I am the weirdo here, but, maybe not always for my opinions about baseball. Maybe on this one I will be. Because even though it's sort of old news, I think it connects to just this whole vibe of the season. And it's what we heard from Garrett Crochet, his handlers, and of course Chris Getz leading up to the trading deadline. Garrett had come out, or his handlers had come out, saying he really wasn't going to be happy with the trade, depending on his usage with a new team, depending on his contract status with a new team, which of course, as we all knew in the moment, no matter how pro-labor we are, we knew that killed any opportunity for a trade for the White Sox. And at heart, we're White Sox fans. We know Garrett Crochet is going to contribute nothing meaningful to this team in the 2 years we're still in the abyss. He will be gone after 2 years. That is a given. The White Sox will not pay him. They're not paying him anything now. They're not going to pay him anything in 2 years. lot of conflicting opinions. Of course, you have the old school cavemen who say send Garrett Crochet down to Charlotte as punishment. Okay, and then of course there's the flip side that says, yes, unite the people, fight the power, and Crochet did the right thing. I don't feel either of those extremes, but I'm curious to know. Initially what you felt when you sort of heard that report, and then how that may have changed as you turned it over and as the deadline passed and Crochet's still here, signifying nothing, having no purpose, on this team. And I'm sorry, forgive me for saying that, but this is let's see. Let me look at my pencil and paper here, Joe. A 28-89 team. So zero purpose for a guy who's put together 20 dynamite starts in his career. Dante, let me kick it right back to you. Your thoughts in the moment, and has it changed at all? He's still here and clearly killed a trade market. Perhaps affected the long-term fortunes of the team as a result.
So I'm going to try not to go too long on this, because at first I did feel like, yeah, player power, but like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh no, this is idiotic, because like you're not due for extinction. You have gone more innings than you've ever gone. You actually probably do need to be limited, Garrett. Like, I love you, but also you need to be limited at some point in time. If you get traded to the right team, you become the fourth starter instead of the eighth starter. And like, sometimes you need to know your limits. I get it as part of he's about to go into arbitration thing, and starters get paid a lot more than relievers in arbitration. And also, he just wants to be a starter. Like, we've known he's wanted to be a starter from the get-go. And my mind on like not trading him is, one, like you said, he killed his own trade market. Two, I'd like to have players that I would like to see play for the White Sox when I go to games. As we've said before, but the dudes that you buy tickets for. You buy tickets for Luis Robert, who we all pretty much knew wasn't getting traded. You buy tickets for Garrett Crochet. Like, for example, August 14th, Negro Leagues night for the White Sox. That stadium might be filled because it's going to be White Sox Yankees, and also they have a really nice jersey giveaway. I will be there, despite the fact that this team is going to be one of the worst teams of the 21st century. I feel confident in saying that, despite the fact that we are not even quite a quarter into the 21st century.
So true. So you're witnessing history. Maybe you'll witness some Joe Resis history. I mean, crazier things that happen. Who's to say? Joe, your thoughts on this? Again, leading up to and then crossing through with Garrett still in town.
Initially, I was definitely surprised. It just seemed like a very, very unusual request. Like, I mean, I absolutely understand why he wants the extension. I mean, he hasn't really pitched a lot. He's in uncharted territory.
Joe, may I interrupt? I want an extension too. I'm pretty sure you want an extension. Well, listen, I know you want an extension. Dante, for sure you want an extension. So let's just establish we all want extensions, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, obviously staying healthy prior to this year at least has been a major problem for him early on in his career. And, he being locked up for, several years would be a major upside. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall for those kinds of conversations. And I'm very curious, like, what kinds of requests he was making. Because it is very difficult to, estimate, his market value right now, if he was a free agent. I mean, because he has been a fantastic pitcher this year.
Yeah, for half a season.
Yeah. It's just, I could see a situation in the negotiations where, someone who's really bullish on him could, give a really high number, and there could also be the person on the other side of the negotiation saying, wait a second, you've played just a little more than half a year as a starter. What are you talking about? Even if it has been a very good, half a season. So like, it's just, I think what he is demanding, as long as it's a low enough like dollar amount, like I could maybe understand it, but I kind of feel like I'd have to know exactly what he thinks he is worth, for me to kind of make that judgment. But I was definitely surprised, when that news broke, just because I really wasn't expecting that sort of demand, which you generally don't see very often at the trade deadline.
I want to briefly change the subject just to let everybody know the thousands of you watching on YouTube. We have fired our graphics department because they are about 7 minutes behind on all of our topics, and that's just unacceptable. If you're doing the character generator out there in the production truck, you got to actually be paying attention to the podcast. So step up your game, or we're going to have to show you the door. Melissa,
just because the White Sox suck does not mean you have to not pay attention to us.
No,
you don't have to pay attention to the team. You don't even have to watch them. We will do that for you.
In fact,
it's even pay attention to what we're doing.
Yeah, it's even more offensive. Come on. Melissa, I know you among many, just within our staff. I know the initial reaction was good for Garrett in terms of sort of taking a stand and being willing to speak up for his career. And I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Of course, you deserve to have a seat at the table of your own usage. But as maybe more details came out and so on, are you still sort of seeing his logic more than the Sox side, or is it just a weird situation?
So yeah, when I first heard it, I was like, good for you, Garrett. Like, I'm a big fan of people who can advocate for themselves. Mm-hmm. So like initially I was just like, go Garrett, like good job, buddy. Like just had the mom vibes there. Then once I like kind of dug into it a little bit more and read all then I became a little befuddled about it, because I was like, don't you want the hell out of here? Mm-hmm. Like any team that was going to trade for him was going to look at him as a valuable asset. Mm-hmm. So they certainly would have sat down at the table with him and been like, okay, you understand you have a unique situation. Yeah. Let's work together. And especially because it would be like an intelligent organization like the Dodgers,
exactly,
or the Orioles, or, the Braves. Yep. An organization who you would have faith in. But maybe that's part of it. Maybe he's so used to the behavior of the White Sox, and you're a closer, you're a reliever, you're a starter, and he's seen this chaos, and that's all he's ever been part of, that he was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going somewhere and they're gonna jerk me all around. Mm-hmm. But then you would also think he has advisors, his agency would kind of talk to him about that and
like their job.
Yeah, bring him back into that moment and be like, okay, Garrett, we understand, like, this is all you've ever known, but this is not how good organizations run. Let me show you some examples. And so I guess I was kind of, as a parent, disappointed in his advisors, thinking that they kind of did a crappy job for him and weren't his best advocates. And so that was kind of my reaction. That's a little different than what the other guys said. So
he wasn't going to get traded to the Italian League. He wasn't going to get traded to the yet named expansion franchise in Montreal. I mean, he clearly was going to go to a team, very likely because there's 29 of them smarter than the White Sox, clearly valuing him in terms of both not wanting to kill him, knowing he's got to be getting to his upper limit in innings. So knowing there's going to have to be some kind of different approach, even if it's, we will pay you to sit at home for 2 months until the playoffs. And I guess to spin this and continue the conversation a little bit more here, because I don't want to put anybody in position to have to defend the front office. And trust me, I don't want to be in that position either. And you could argue that Chris Getz should just have nothing to say, although, of course, if he has nothing to say, talking to reporters at the trade deadline, that becomes a story as well. It's a rock and a hard place. I thought he was pretty frank and pretty honest. Again, whether it was wise to speak at all, I don't think it does any huge lasting damage that hasn't already been done to the White Sox. And it's not as if he can feel like, well, I can behave with impunity because our name is already mud. That's not the point either. But I think he was pretty frank in saying, we've been talking up until like literally yesterday, or literally the day before this story came out, and it was disappointing. And people are seizing on the fact that he was a scrub, so he has no right to compare himself to Crochet, who was an all-star, yes, and who seems to be on the rise as a major league player in a way that Getz never was. But Getz also had a right to be frustrated and not want to report if demoted. When he got traded to Kansas City, because I don't want to get traded to Kansas City, he would have wanted to know from Kansas City, what his role might be, or he knew there was a power to wield, but also maybe how to wield it. I thought the reaction against, again, I do not want to be in a position to defend this front office, but I'm not really sure what was done horribly wrong on that end either. I suppose just trying to minimize the talk about it, but I don't think there was a lot of talk about it either. It was just, this is what happened. And for once, the White Sox, and being maybe sort of honest about something, to me came across a little bit better than it seemed like most people were perceiving, because it's like, well, this is what happened. You might, and I get, people can disagree or agree with how stupid the White Sox are, but I don't think there was a lot of gamesmanship going on. I'm not sure that Chris Getz is, I won't say clever, I'm not going to insult him that way, but like media savvy enough to he's not pulling any strings with the media. He hardly talks to them. So interested maybe to get your takes on sort of the team's reaction to it, because I think the team have a right to be a little frustrated. No more market. The player decided, or the representatives decided to go out and kill the market, when you knew that you needed to look very strongly at moving the guy at a time where you probably could have got a return, even knowing that he might get 2 months of vacation coming up. Return, could have certainly approached Sage, given the time of the season and some of the desperation for arms, and Crochet being the prize arm. Killed that. Got to be a frustrating situation for the front office, and I am not going to often be sympathetic with the front office here. I suppose I am interested in any of your takes on the White Sox side of things.
I kind of agree. I'm not going to lie, because, yeah, you killed your own market at a time that the team absolutely should, in theory, should be trading you. Yeah. Again, as the president wanted to keep him simply so I could have something good to watch, the team should have traded him and was prepared to do so from all accounts.
Yeah.
And they got screwed out being able to do that because, and this is less Crochet blame. I blame his agency a lot more than I blame him. Because at the end of the day, he is a young dude that has known nothing but the White Sox that is in a unique situation. He literally started his career in the major leagues, never played in the minors until he had TJ surgery. So I understand why he would have any apprehension. But also, as Melissa said earlier, your handler should be taking care of you and try to advise you better than stay with this team that's going to be under 500 for the next 2 to 4 years. So, that's why I land is, far be it for us to agree with the front office, but yeah, if they have value, they have valid ideas of being frustrated, and they seemed honest. And we talked about the fact that they haven't seemed honest recently. Good job.
Yeah, really good. It probably was an accident, but okay, they stumbled into it. And here's and the reason why I think Dante's right in that this probably isn't really on Crochet's shoulders as much as it is the handlers, because he clearly knows just from the season, the same way Chris Sale really didn't have an excuse to get all bent out of shape in many different ways, because when something wasn't going right, talk to the front office, got it ironed out. With Crochet, it was being used as a closer longer than he wanted to, because the guy wanted to start, and he's a monster, and he was right, and the team went along, and they ended up being right and let him go along. Who in the world would have thought this guy would have done what he's done? I mean, come on. The first time I hear him talk, he wants to be a starter, I'm like, oh, yeah, well, good. Again, I want an extension. I mean, it's great to want things. I want to be the opening day starter for the White Sox, too. I seem to have about as much of a chance as Garrett Crochet. And to their credit, okay, we'll listen to you. We'll take a look. We'll measure you in all these different ways. And every step of the way to the point where his first major league start is an opening day start. You can't really get more endorsement from your team than that. So you think that he would have felt that bond was very solid. They were going to hear, whether discussing a trade, discussing his use for the rest of the season, that whatever connection there was with him and Katz, him and Getz, whoever it is, was pretty tight, which made this whole wrinkle sort of surprising. Joe and Melissa, your thoughts on the Getz and White Sox side of things?
I'll go. So to me, if the White Sox are telling the truth, if Chris Getz was being truthful, that this really kind of came out of nowhere, I think it just goes back to the advisors kind of let him down, because now they've also weakened what relationship there was already between Garrett and the White Sox. And certainly that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the player, and it doesn't help the organization. Does the organization deserve to be helped or deserve good things? I mean, that could be argued, but I think it was, if the White Sox are being honest, and I hate that we have to even preface that, but it's unfortunate, because I think in the end, it really is hurting Garrett from multiple directions.
Yeah. I think even Rick Hahn, he was no media wizard either, but he seemed much more. Well, of course, he had more time. He had like how in the world did he have a decade to practice this? But I mean, he had more time to hone what could have been talking out two sides of his mouth. I mean, to me, Getz came across as, a little too Opie Taylor, a little too aw shucks for that to be too contrived. If so, man, he needs to get on the stage once he's fired, because if he's fired soon, he needs to get right on the stage. Get him on stage as Schubert, have him join Steppenwolf or something, because the man needs to act, because he fooled me. I mean, I'm not the best judge of character, as is proven to me week in, week out. But that said, I sort of have to believe in the authenticity, at least of this one. It does not excuse the other 99 that we want to choke him to death over. This one, he might get a pass, but does Joe Resis agree?
Yeah, I'm inclined to give the White Sox front office the benefit of the doubt on this one for now. It just because it was a very unusual situation. I had no reason to believe, and I take it they didn't have any reason to believe either. That something like this was coming from Crochet's side. That's definitely true. With as far as facing the media, I definitely feel like Hahn, with his experience and also that law background, he was very good at tiptoeing around things, and so it was a little bit disorienting when Getz spoke about the situation the way that he did, I hope that all works out, though, in the end for Crochet. I think this was just, a little bit of a misstep, but I think that, in the long run, as long as, he keeps, giving them solid innings, this offseason, I think the talks can resume, and I don't think I think this situation can be redeemed on his part.
Fingers crossed. White Sox need fuel for the 14th rebuild of the 21st century. Okay, pulling it back to the record no one seems to care about, but Brett, your host, who will be shedding a tiny tear as the White Sox cross over into becoming a losing franchise. That can happen as soon as Saturday if the Cubs sweep the White Sox in the mini series. We can get into a whole bunch of crosstown talk. We're not going to do that. Although, thankfully, it's fun to relish, because guess what? They're both fifth place teams. That's the best way to play the Cubs. If you got to be in fifth place, let's play them in there just as far from first as we are. Sorry, Cubs fans. Love to take the piss.
Are you sorry?
No, not at all. Love to take the piss out of you. Okay, so prediction, because we could be talking again soon, as soon as post-game Saturday, ringing in the losing White Sox and counting ahead to the many, 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 many calendar pages that are wasted before the White Sox get their head back above water. Let's do a mini quick round of: will the White Sox be below 500 as soon as Saturday? AKA, what is going to happen in this coming crosstown series? I will go to one of the two mixed families on this podcast. I'm going to go to Melissa first. Recommended. Well, no, you don't have to sit far away from your husband, because he's arguably, I would say, if I'm a Cubs fan, I might be more miserable. We have no illusions. This is going to be 100, close to 100 loss season. Okay, 120, horrifying, but really, how much more pain? We're already numb. How much more pain we're going to feel? So going in, you think White Sox are going to pull a surprise on the Cubs, or will we be talking again, Melissa, on Saturday?
Yeah, no, they have no chance. No, they're just so bad. I mean, I have probably out of the however many games
Oh.
they've played this year, I have watched like 95% of them, and they're
Okay.
just terrible. And they're more terrible now than they were before because of the trades that they made.
Yeah.
So they are not gonna. The Cubs are gonna be all hyped up. I think the Cubs. I hear my family talking. I think they have actually won the last couple of games and kind of in an exciting fashion of some sort. Because I hear them singing "Go Cubs Go."
Oh, good God!
Yeah,
God.
I'll make sure to like crank it up too, so I can hear it. And so I think they're on kind of they've got some momentum going, and we have no momentum. And coming out of Oakland and being tired and whatever, yeah, no, we're losing. So.
Okay, talk to you on Saturday. Okay, now that you said that, forget it. I'm jumping ahead of these two youngsters, these two 28-year-olds. I'm going to check IDs. They're sweeping. They are going to beat the no. So no, we will not be talking. We'll be talking sometime next week, Melissa. Sorry, I've got to wait a couple more days for a bumbling, silly podcast host and podcast that never, ever, ever ends. Okay, 65 minutes in. Dante Jones, what is going to happen? Go ahead and make your dad cry if it comes down to it. Don't be afraid. What's going to happen? And are we going to talk again on Saturday?
I've already said my piece. I think the Cubs sweep. I think the Cubs sweep. Unfortunately, despite the fact that I think Luis Robert is better than most of the people on the Cubs, he has not played like it this season.
No.
So that means that the Cubs probably have 4 or 5 people better than the best player on the Cubs.
That's true.
So, on the White Sox. So, sweep.
Not looking good, yeah.
50% chance I'm there on Friday night. We'll see how ticket prices are. I hope I can bring some good luck and see the White Sox finally win a game against the Cubs this season. But I have my doubts.
We'll see Dante on screen somehow stumbling under a cup snake of 150, and people will be cheering for him. Yeah, man, yeah. And then Dante will say, "There's a baseball game over there." Okay, Joe, what's happening in these two games? We going to talk again on Saturday? Oh, I can't hear you. So reveal your answer.
Sorry, my mouse was like hovering over the mute button. And okay. Anyways, I am almost brave enough to pick the White Sox in the Crochet versus Tyone game, but I'm not brave enough. They're getting swept. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, it is. Like I like Crochet's chances to shut down the Cubs, but he's only going to pitch for 4 innings, and they're going to lose that game like 3-2. I think. Like I do not trust the White Sox offense enough to pick them in that game, and then Flexen is going to get rocked, so they're not going to win that game. So yeah, that's my prediction. Unfortunately, I'm gonna predict this
again. Despite the dashing, youthful good looks of the host, the most hard Scrabble fan here, and the one who has the faith to say, as always is the case, it's always like upside down with crosstown. You got to admit that it's always weird. Sox are riding high, and then the Cubs somehow kick him in the hiney. Sox are going to do that to the Cubs. Forget it. I don't even care about that. I'm angry at this team, so I'm not rooting for it, but it's going to happen.
Your wife needs to come in and take your temperature, Brett.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah, that seems pretty clear. Yeah, well, that's, okay. Just ever the contrarian. Okay, well, sorry I won't be talking to any of you on Saturday because it's not going to be happening. The White Sox are going to be back. They're going to have pivoted right at the precipice and pivoted back into, no, see, I'm not that crazy. Of course, it's going to be a long and horrific spin into the 2030s before the White Sox are back above water, but not quite yet. Yes, watch out, Cubs. You're riding high, blaring that stupid song and doing your cup snakes. No. We're still real baseball fans. We're not a real baseball team, but sometimes in these games, you don't have to be a real baseball team. You can have none of the better players, and yet somehow, usually it's the Cubs, like somehow beat the side. What's going on here? Okay, so that's my prediction. Everyone else, sorry, you're wrong, but, and who's going to laugh at me when it turns out I'm wrong? Just clearly I'm overheated here. Yeah, no doubt about that. Okay, so Saturday may talk. Could be Monday, could be Tuesday. It'll definitely be next week, if not Saturday, because it's coming. There's no way to stop this train. The White Sox are in trouble. And again, I might be the only one who cares, but it is sort of a sad sort of milestone to cross over into, given the fact that the Sox have staved it off for 68 years. I think shouldn't it just go on forever? Well, we're not the Yankees. Okay, well, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach, again, mixed household. God bless these next couple days. Dante Jones, respect your pops, but again, I hope he's crying many tiny tears up into the weekend. Love him, though. Love him, but I hope he's very sad the next couple days. Super Joe Resis, just continue with the fumes of the win, man. You got to pull that ticket off eBay. That's cool. I will understand. But, hey, maybe let it ride because, it gets into four figures. Come on, it's just a ticket stub. That's right. The only minute your ticket stub's more. Okay, don't sell your cell phone. Don't. That's not recommended. Okay, Joe, Melissa, Dante, thanks. Hey, listen, it's been like, I don't know, 2 months. I don't know how long it's been. Do we do podcasts anymore? Am I even recording? Anyhow, we will have another one of these soon as the White Sox cross over into the true death throes. This is just the anticipatory death throes. But anyhow, thanks for being part of the wake with me, Melissa, Joe, Dante, all you listening, maybe even watching, to please send in the angry letters to our terrible character generator and graphics people. Very poor job there. Going to have to step it up in the production area in the future. Listen to Ladies Night whenever one comes around. Again, with Melissa hosting. Who knows? Me and Joe might talk about the minors at some point sometime. And you never know what me and Dante might talk about. Who's to say? It could be Cup Snakes at Wrigley Field. He actually goes to Wrigley Field sometimes. So, he may have to account. I may just have to call him on the carpet for that, and say, hey, explain yourself.
That Cup Snake, I can proudly say.
I'm sure if that was the case, Dante, grounds for termination. Okay. Anyhow, we will all get together, I'm sure, sooner than later, sadly enough, sooner than later, to talk about the demise of the Chicago White Sox, because it's an endless topic. It's so much fun. Even though I promised it would be a short podcast, we are well into minute 70. So thanks, everybody, and we'll talk again, unfortunately, very soon.